My name is Colleen Hollis. I'm the Sport Management Program Coordinator at MSU Denver. And my colleagues, there's Dr. Troy Morgan and Professor Nicole Ferrier, we'd like to welcome you to our first and inaugural Women in Sport Management Leadership and Networking event. So very excited about the turnout tonight. First, I'd like to thank our sponsors, which is the Department of Human Performance and Sport, and our department chair, Dr. Ruth Ann Nihus, you can wave, and our department coordinator was Stephanie, did a lot of work. That was, I'd like to thank her for that. And then also MSU Denver Athletics. So Dr. Anthony Grant, I think, is here. So our athletic director, John Kitzman, over there. Jared Oates, who helped us with the facility, and Eric Lansing, who is volunteering his time in the back videotaping for us. And then also the women leaders in college sports, and then Forward Progress Athletics Consulting. So before I introduce our panelists, I'd like to give a special thanks to Pat Tietrich, who is with the Denver Broncos Guest Relations. He's the Director of Guest Relations. He's also on our advisory board, so we really wanted to thank him for coming tonight and for his support. I'd also like to first introduce Dr. Sandra Haynes, who is our Deputy Provost and Vice President for Academic Affairs for a few more days. And she's going to offer a welcome. We're losing her. She's becoming the Chancellor at Washington State University Tri-Cities. So anytime a woman rises to the top of a university, we're very proud of that. So I'm going to hand off to you.
Thank you so much. I think my job is fairly straightforward tonight. It's to welcome you to this event and to the RAC and all of the things that we're proud of in athletics over here, and of course our Human Performance and Sport program. I hear this is the inaugural program for women in leadership or women who are aspiring to be leaders in sport management or in sport in general. And I was asked to just say a little bit about women in leadership. I'm really proud to say that MSU Denver has a terrific track record of promoting women into leadership positions. I've been here for quite some time, 23 years. And in my time, we've had 2 college presidents that are women. All of our deans are women. Most of our associate deans are women. We have many department chairs that are women. So we tend at MSU Denver to truly support the growth and promotion of women into leadership positions. It's been a fabulous place to be because of that, because we get the recognition and get the support we need to advance. Not every place is going to be like that. I'm going to, and I imagine in sport that's going to be particularly true. So I'm moving to a place, this might feel something like I'm going in and out, so if I'm having problems, let me know. I'm going to a place where I'll be the only female leader, so that will be quite a change for me, but I think I can do it. At any rate, I encourage you all to seek leadership positions. And in fact, I would say you are all leaders right now. And you might not feel like you're a leader, or you might not feel like you may not have a title that says that you're the deputy provost, or whatever the title is that says that you are a leader. But begin to think of yourself as a leader and lead from where you are. That's my best advice to you, is be a leader wherever you are. Do whatever it takes to show your leadership style and to develop yourself as a leader. People will notice that. People will notice that you take the extra effort. People will notice that you step up to the plate, that you're the one who is willing to take on the challenges and do a good job with whatever is presented to you. Now, there's many times where you will have to make decisions in your life about whether you're going to take a formal leadership position or not. So you'll have to balance that. What's going on in my personal life versus what is it that I want to do professionally. But never give up on being the leader that you are and aspiring to be more formal leader at some point in your life. I'm kind of old for being a new chancellor, but it was the right time in my life to do this, and the opportunity presented itself, and I jumped on it. But I've been preparing myself the entire time, as I said earlier, taking on extra responsibility, making sure that I was the person that people could go to. And I just encourage you to do that now and throughout your careers, and I wish you all the best. And I'm just so delighted that you put on this program for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously wish you the best of luck in your new role as the Chancellor. So our panelists for tonight include Chris Ekren, Executive Director for USA Swimming, Kirsten Ford, who's the Senior Women's Administrator and Assistant Commissioner for the RMAC, Annie Hoskinson, Executive Director of Sportswomen of Colorado, Amy Wagner, the Director of Player Relations for Major League Baseball Players Alumni Association, and then last but not least, our top-notch substitute, Sela Shuki, who's the Vice President of Operations for Forward Progress Athletics Consulting. Unfortunately, Stacy Bayer, who is the head of group ticket sales as a coordinator for the Denver Nuggets, is battling the flu and is not able to attend tonight. Chris, if you can just, and then we'll go along the line, if you could just give everyone a brief overview of your career, how you got to where you are today, and some of the accomplishments that have happened.
Well, first of all, it's so great to be here. So thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to get to meet people that are moving into the sport management field. I did my bachelor's degree in finance at the University of Oklahoma, followed up by a master's degree in sports management at also the University of Oklahoma. Go Sooners. I started my career really looking at youth sports. That was my focus of my research. So I worked for the YMCA for a while, and then I went to the city of Oklahoma City as their athletic and aquatic supervisor. Made a move to Colorado and started again in community recreation. I worked for the Apex Recreation District and had a variety of roles and kind of kept moving up until I was the manager and built a project of the largest public recreation center in the United States, so that was really cool. From there I made a total switch and went to work for the National Sports Center for the Disabled, which is headquartered here in Denver, and had a really great time there. Got to work in events, more in nonprofit and fundraising, and then also set up a nationwide program of sports clinics for kids with disabilities. So a really rewarding career. And then decided it was time to make a change and had an opportunity to go to USA Fencing as their membership director and did that for about a year and a half and just happened to be right place, right time. Had an executive director that left and I became the executive director of USA Fencing and I've been there for about 5 years. So again, really love moving in the Olympic or working in the Olympic movement. It is never a boring job, I'll tell you that. So just a lot of great experiences and look forward to sharing a little bit more with you.
I'm Kirsten Ford. I'm the Assistant Commissioner in SWA at the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. I'm very excited to be here, so thank you so much for having me. I am a former Division II tennis student athlete from Emporia State University. I earned a biochemistry and molecular biology degree and then decided to change direction and got an MBA, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. But while I was a student athlete, I was also on our institution's SAC, Student Athlete Advisory Committee, and then I was the representative for the MIAA on the Division II Student Athlete Advisory Committee. So that kind of opened my eyes to athletics as a career path. And then when I interviewed for this position, I actually came across someone on the hiring committee that I had met when I was a student athlete. So you never know when those connections are going to pop up. So I encourage you to foster those relationships that you already have right now. I've been with the RMAC for a little over 4 years. I mainly do compliance and membership services. When I started, I was the director of compliance and business operations. And then after about 1.5 years, I became assistant commissioner and recently switched from business operations to membership services. So happy to be here. Thank you.
See, I'm Melissa. My name's Annie Hoskinson. I was an athlete in college, but it wasn't until my senior year that they counted it as a varsity sport. So you already know that I was involved with Title IX and getting played with a bigger basketball for your side. But my first job, if you will, out of college was a job that I created. I went to the athletic director and said, well, I think I should run this, that, and the other thing. And then I suggested that you should hire me. So that was really my first job in athletics, in murals at University of Denver. Then I went to New York City. I'd grown up in Connecticut, and I worked for a sports marketing firm. And this was, if you will, kind of the really starting to making sports marketing a little bit more formal. We were the company that sold snow in a can from Lake Placid. But while I was there, we developed a number of programs, 3 of them that I was directly involved with helping to develop and get running. One of them was something called the Equitable Old Timer Series, which at the time was with all 26 Major League Baseball teams. So if you wanted to meet your favorite player, or one you always idolized, you got to do that. And we did things like the Crystal Light New York City Triathlon, Battery Park. I mean, it was way ahead of its time, but it was fun. Then I went back to the University of Denver, earned my MBA. I was in charge of the budgets if you know anything about TU, we started to go from Division II to Division I. We built the Ritchie Center, so I was doing a lot of the budgeting there, and if there's an area that I think is a real good area to be involved with, it's finances, because you control more than they think you do. And then I did a number of jobs there. Periodically, I've worked for and become partners in smaller firms, and now I've become executive director of Sportswomen of Colorado. One of the major things that we do is we honor girls and women in sports, and it doesn't matter male or female, people who have supported sports all the way through. And I'm having a good time.
Okay, mine's going to be rather short. I haven't had a lot of experience in sports, as I am 5 years, I guess 4.5, since graduating from here. I started, Pat actually gave me a chance being an usher in 2012, and I was an usher for the Broncos. Prior to that, when the Women's Final Four was here in 2012, I was a volunteer coordinator. So kind of assisted with anywhere that volunteers were needed at the games, autograph signings, any of the meetings NCAA had going on. So I was able to assist with that. After that, going into my summer of my senior year, I got hired on, or I did my internship with Major League Baseball Players Alumni. There's 2 A's on that, not 1. People get that confused and get us confused with the Players Association. We're based out of Colorado Springs. I was hired on to do inventory, shipping, dirty work essentially. But I learned a lot. My boss took a chance on me. I was hired that following January as online sales. So what we do is we get autographed memorabilia signed by former and current players and sell it. So anything we do, we give back to the players. Any money we make goes to other charities. So I've been there ever since, so I've been there 4 full years. I moved up really quick. I'm now the Director of Player Relations and Sales, so I handle all the current, all the former players, signings, anything that has to do with that. Any sales, I have only 3 guys under me, but yeah, we make a couple $1 million. We give a lot back to the players. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Only a couple million.
Yep, only a couple million.
Yeah, my name is Stella Schicky. I work currently with Forward Progress Athletics Consulting. And my story, there's some similarities based on what I've been hearing here. And it is as far away from a straight line as you can get. And I think I see a lot of heads nodding, and I spoke to some people who are in the beginning of their career, still in school. I think that's some of the exciting part you have to look forward to. So I began as a student athlete at UC San Diego. It's also on their student athlete advisory committee. That's also what made me change from being a high school history teacher, what I was going to be, have a history major, to wanting to work in athletics. I was open up to a whole new world. So with my undergraduate degree in history, I decided I needed a master's, and I went to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to earn my master's in sport management. And from there, worked at the U.S. Soccer Federation. As a soccer player, I had a small stint at the Rose Bowl Stadium beforehand, where I met a lot of the people who were at the U.S. Soccer Federation. I was only at the Rose Bowl Stadium for 4 months when someone was on maternity leave. But it was the summer of 1999. And some of the people at the stadium said, "Oh, you like soccer, go deal with these soccer people. And then when they get here, we'll take over." And I was just head over here. I can't believe it. They even pronounced it FIFA instead of FIFA. Not everyone, just a couple. So a lot of it is being at the right place at the right time and being ready when that happens. Because that'll always happen, just being when you're at the right place, right time. After your Soccer Federation, I enjoyed my time there in operations, but made a drastic change and wanted to go back to the development of the athlete more so, more directly. And I worked at a nonprofit that promoted soccer and literacy in inner city public schools across the country. I did that for a while. It's called American Scores. And then after about 5 years, I wanted to go back to my college athletic roots. And that's where I worked at the NCAA in student athlete development. And worked with just some bigger, taller, older student athletes rather than the ones that were at the elementary school level. And that was great. But after 3 kids and being outnumbered, we needed a little more support around us, so we moved from Indianapolis. My husband and I, who was also at the NCAA, and we started our own business for Progress Athletics Consulting. And it was a mix. At the base, at our core, we're about the success of student athletes. And we do academic consulting, that's one half. And the other half, which is my favorite half, is the leadership and student athlete development half. And when those two intersect, that's where Forward Progress lives, and that's where we think there's success. So yeah, that's my story of winding around back and forth. But at the core of it has always been the development of the athlete. I realize there's one here. Yeah.
I'll just keep mine. Okay, so feel free, we don't have to go in a line for these questions. You guys can just kind of jump in as we go. But if you guys could speak to the significant barriers that females face in the sports industry, more specifically in leadership roles, and maybe some of the barriers you've faced.
That's not great.
Power.
Yeah, there you go. I'm fairly new in my role, with only being here a little over 4 years. I think some of the significant barriers that we see have to do with our hiring practices. We've been very intentional in the RMAC as we've hired throughout the years. When I first started with the RMAC, we were 75% male, now we're 75% female. And that's been very that's been very intentional. So I think some of the initial barriers we're seeing, and hopefully as we talk more about it, those barriers start to come down. But what hiring practices are happening that are preventing women from getting into those positions? Because you really have to be intentional about who you're bringing into interview, what your qualifications or requirements are. So I think that's the first step, is hiring practices.
Well, the good news is that the barriers have changed. They used to be significant. The very fact you were female wouldn't get you in the door. You had to know somebody. And people talk about being in the right place at the right time. I went to church with my mother. The family friend behind us said, "Oh, you need to go talk to my daughter's boyfriend's father, he works at Sports Illustrated. So she worked it out, and I called, and he said, no, you don't want to work at Sports Illustrated. And I'm going, yeah, I do. And he said, I want you to get in touch with this gentleman named Bob Eriks. And I went over and talked to him. The thing that you've got to remember, it's not always about your qualifications. They're going to look at how you're going to fit in. To this day, I swear, because I looked up, he had a picture of 5 boys and 1 girl, and I came from a family of 5 girls and 1 boy. I got the job. So never give that up. But talking about barriers, there's still the idea that, oh, girls can't do, or women can't do this job. That's just not true anymore at all. With the baseball, when I did that, I went around to all the baseball teams because I was in charge of operations, and I went with our PR person. We get to Milwaukee, and the marketing person, first of all, he wasn't very happy that it was a female. And I would ask him a question, and he would answer, the person would be Mark. Enough so that when we walked out, Mark said, I have to apologize. I said, you didn't do anything. But that's changed now. That would never happen. So take advantage of that, go for it. And the other thing barrier that I want you to really think about is don't be your own barrier. Okay? Just go in and do it. Believe in yourself. As they say, take a big breath and then walk in and tell them you're the best.
Right. I think both of them hit it on the head, really. So I'm the only female right now on our side of the business, and I'm a director. So a lot of barriers I face in my current job is a lot of the guys that work under me are around my same age, just out of college, and I'm a female. So a lot of them look up to me, and it's hard to get that respect from them. So I still think that there are barriers, but at the same time, you have to stand up for what you believe in. You know what you're doing. So don't back down from any of that, no matter what.
So I won't go too much into the barriers because we have time limits here, right, of what we've experienced. But the first one that comes to mind, and often comes to mind, is my role as event manager at U.S. Soccer Federation was to take care of all things on the field and the visiting team, hotels, buses, practice, down to the right flavor Gatorade. In the locker rooms, because people really care. But I had a very similar situation where the person I was speaking to was not happy that their host was a female. And so when I would say, all right, well, your practice is at this time, the bus, would you like the bus to get here, the menus, those types of things, all responses would go to my intern, who was male. And then he would have to translate. I guess that was the first mansplaining that I ever experienced to me in the same language, because we all spoke the same language. Well, he said 2 o'clock. Okay, and it was a lot of patience. And it isn't always that direct. But I feel like people are used to seeing certain stereotypes in certain positions, whether it's female, ethnicity, religion, age. There's so many. That I think we all need to challenge ourselves to shift that perspective of who you think what should a fireman look like, or firefighter even, right? Or what should this position look like? And I think for me, what's been key all along the way is finding what is that support system. Sometimes it's family, sometimes it's people who are in the same shoes that you're in your office, your work spouse that everyone has, right? Someone that you can work with and to figure out who can you surround yourself with, because you're going to have those bad days, and they're going to have those bad days. So who's going to be there to help you through that? I think that's the key.
Well, it's always bad to go last because everybody's taking everything. No, I really think the most significant barrier is just the lack of women at C-level leadership positions currently. I work in the NGB Olympic field, and there are 50 national governing bodies of Olympic and Paralympic sports. And of those 50, there are 3 women CEOs. So there definitely is some room for improvement there. And if I'm being really honest, I hope that I come to a time when I'm just one of the 50, but it's also pretty challenging to be one of the 3 of 50. So I think it's just continuing to network and to build that up so that there are women in leadership position. I believe in diverse leadership is best, and so we want to bring all kinds of views and everybody at the same table, so I think that that's really important. I also would agree that women tend to be more hesitant to take that next leap. Oh, I'm not ready. Oh, I don't have the qualifications. But just really jumping forward and looking at being able to overcome some of those barriers. And the final thing that I want to say, it's really great to see some men here tonight, because while we can all sit around as women and say, go women, we actually need the men to say, go women, and help support and really look at that leadership level. How can we all work together so we have an equal balance at the table?
So kind of going off of that, you guys talked about overcoming these barriers. So when you are at that leadership role, you all don't have to answer this, but what do you think is the greatest positive aspects that women bring to these leadership roles?
The words I wrote down were cooperation, collaboration, teamwork, looking for the synergy. There's no doubt in my mind we tend to be a little bit less authoritarian than guys. And we try and make everybody successful. And I think that's really important. There's also the concern that's been mentioned a little bit, that we think we have to work twice as hard to make our mark. We just have to work right and work hard. But I really firmly believe a woman tends to bring the idea of teamwork and collaboration generally more strongly than men. And that's not to say there aren't guys out there who do it just as well.
I would say perspective, just a different perspective. Because there's the quote that I'm going to butcher from Einstein, that, you know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So bringing a different perspective, a different background. And again, it doesn't have to be female, but particularly in the sports world, often that's a perspective that's missing. So I feel like that's a big one.
She said not everybody had an answer.
I'm going to touch on this one just real quick. I completely agree that different perspective is very important. For us, with a membership organization, is kind of how we view it. We want to represent the people that we serve. So we serve female and male student athletes. We serve athletes who are Hispanic, Black, you know, it goes on and on and on. So if we have in our office that representation, hopefully that helps our student athletes know this is a path that you can take. Athletics administration can be for you. And also just reflecting that we're open, hopefully, with that representation as well.
Yeah, again, I think that whether male or female, we all bring different strengths to the table. It's just good to have diverse voices at the table, and I think the more women and more balance that we can have, the better off we're all going to be working together.
What do you all think is next? What the next generation? What do you think the future of women in sports is? Do you see any future in trends, etc.?
I hope it's more female athletic directors and commissioners and CEOs of NGBs. I hope that number keeps going up. We need more than 3.
For me, working in baseball, I want to see a woman GM. That's my ultimate goal. It's going to be hard to get there, but it's doable. You know, you see a lot of people. You look at the Rapids. You know, they just hired Ina Patel, I believe her name is, and she's the highest-ranking technical, you know, executive person in all of MLS. So I think that we definitely see trends happening. It's just a matter of who's going to be the next person to do it?
Yeah, I'm hesitating here because I don't know where it's going, but I definitely think that the movements that are happening now with Me Too and Time's Up and people finding more courage to speak out is going to translate into all aspects. And it has been for years, but I wish I had that crystal ball. I just feel like that those movements and how it's going forward is going to find a way to impact the world of sports as well.
And yes, that whole Me Too is extremely important. Any of us that have been involved in sports marketing and sports for a long time, it's important. It's really important. One of the things that is of concern to me and what's next is watching the girls' participation in sports. It dips at a certain age. And I think we need to make sure all these girls are being encouraged to participate in sports. People see us in sports. It sounds like all of us at some point have participated. We either high school or college athletes or continue to be athletes. I just think it's really, really important, and we've got to make sure it happens. And the more of us that are there, the more of us that will be there. And the other thing is, we have got to help. If you're in baseball and someone comes to you and you know you can find a position for them, you make sure they come in. Doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah, I wrote down the continued quest for equity at college sports and all levels for females. I also think that one really cool trend that we're seeing is just women participating in sports longer in life. So you're seeing a lot of growth, perhaps women who played sports in high school, they're picking it back up later in life, or they're trying something new, and I think that's great. Not only to continue to promote women in sports, but just for our activity level and our health in the United States in general. I hope that there will eventually be more women's professional sports. I have a 10-year-old daughter, almost 11, and the variety of sports that she can participate in now and does, it's incredible to me, and I hope that we'll continue to see that translate into more professional sports as we move on.
Andy, I know you spoke to this a little, but for all of you, what's your biggest piece of advice for this next generation of women in the sports industry?
Are we talking about the third question?
Or
excuse me, I can't count. I actually wrote a fair amount down. Wrote a lot to talk about this if I could talk. And the first thing I'm going to have everybody do, if your name tag's on your left, put it to your right and shake the person's hand next to you and see if you can figure out why it should be on your right. Shake his hand. And so when you shake hands, you turn to the right so they can read your name tag a whole lot better.
mic drop, mic drop. You're out.
And
I'll remember that.
the person who told me about that was the chairman of the board of the Equitable Life Assurance. And I about died, but he said, "Hey, Annie," and it's one of the greatest pieces of advice. You all can research your companies now. Definitely research them. Know what your market is. I mean, in Denver, we have a lot of sports going on. Are you a fit in that company? What are you going to bring to the company? If you have an idea, if you know the company, you have an idea of something they should do, tell them about it and how you're going to get it done. Let them know that you've got the energy, the willingness, we talked about that before, that you're a team player. It's a big one for me, you gotta be a team player. What's your passion? How do you get in the door? Walk through that door when someone opens it and dispel all the stereotypes about, oh, you have to look this way, you have to have done this, blah, blah, blah. Sell yourself. Oh, one more thing. How many of you have business cards? Oh, yeah. It doesn't matter what it says, get a business card that has your information so that you can hand something out. You never go anywhere without your business card.
My advice is get as much experience as you possibly can in many different departments. I have a lot of guest relations experience, a lot of customer service just from previous jobs, obviously working with the Broncos, volunteer coordinator, and now in sales. So that's my strong suit, but I don't have a lot of strong suit in a lot of other areas, which I wish I would have. I wish I would have taken this extra class in college or took a chance at a different internship, just to learn something. Step out of your comfort zone, think outside of the box, and you'll go a lot further, definitely.
I'll focus on two things. One is really obvious, but where you are, do good work. Even if it's volunteering for something, or you just never know when someone's going to notice or think, hey, they did a great job here and I could use someone like that. Any time. There's people I've served on as a student athlete, served on a committee with someone who's now a commissioner at a Division I conference. I was 21 when I met her. So you never know when these people are going to be back in your life again. So wherever you are, do good work, first and foremost. And the second one, you might have to beep it out, but to believe in your damn self, right? It's hard. We always, and this isn't just women only, but to believe that you can do it. And if you don't believe that you can do it, then find that support system, that person, your hype man, who's going to believe that you can do it. And then you'll eventually believe that you can do it. So those are my two.
I fully support the believe in your damn self.
Yeah.
When I went to this interview for the RMAC, it came out of it, in the press release, my boss said, really were impressed by the confidence that she had in her ability. I'd been unemployed for 5 months, so I could figure out anything. Whatever you tell me to do, I will figure it out. So I was very confident in that job, and I was going to do it very well. So I fully support that. We talked a little bit about doing good work where you are, the people you meet. I'm very into developing the relationships that you have right now. I can't breathe sometimes when I do public speaking, so. Networking is very important, and those touch points are very important. But at the end of the day, if you hand somebody a business card and you only met them once, they're not really going to go to bat for you if you go to a job interview. So developing those relationships that you have right now so that they can speak to the work that you do, I think is really, really important.
Well, mine's not as useful as the name tag. That might be the most useful to take away here. I have just a couple of thoughts. The one is, don't be afraid to step backwards to move forward. There have been a couple of times in my career where I've totally done a switch. It sounds like a couple of us have, and where it meant taking title changes and salary drops, but just believing in yourself that it's all going to work out. And I think when I took the job at USA Fencing as the director of membership, I was like, oh, I don't know if this is a great career move, but I went for it, and it ended up working out really well for me. I also strongly advocate that you have to believe in yourself, but also find yourself and know what your strengths are and be able to communicate that. And don't be afraid to walk away from something if your strengths don't match up. When I became the CEO of USA Fencing, the organization, the board of directors are my bosses, and there's several of them. And they had gone through 5 executive directors in about 6 years. And so when I sat down with them, I knew some of them, and we talked about it, and I said, hey, here are the things that I expect from you, here are my strengths. So don't be afraid to put that out there, that you can match up and to walk away if it doesn't fit. Luckily for me, that one ended up fitting. And finally, I think it's important to have diverse mentors. If I'm really honest, a lot of my mentors right now are males, and just working with them, but knowing that it's okay to have female and male mentors, and how do we all work together, but find those people that are going to support you, that are going to shore up some of your weaknesses, and that can help you, and then do the same in return.
Okay, last question before we open it up to the audience, but what do you all think it would take to get a professional women's sports team in Denver? There's a lot of men's teams, but...
Does anybody know a team called the Colorado Explosion? Ever heard of them? Who said yeah? It was a professional women's basketball team here. We played at the Coliseum, and it didn't last as long as we wanted it to. But one of the things you have to do, in my mind, to get a professional sports team here is, first of all, obviously choose your sport, but do a feasibility study. I believe Denver would be a very tough market because we have so many teams. And we also have a very active, we have a very active population, and that can be really, really tough. In this town, we have to build it so that they win early on. I mean, you can see it. If the Avalanche aren't winning, people don't go. Part of that problem is because of TV, for sure. We've talked about believe all the time. You have to believe it can happen, and you really have to have media support. They can make or break you, and of course you have to have money, but that will come with time.
I think they should hire Annie. That's what I think.
I think we're going to need to continue to support women's sport at whatever level, at the collegiate level and other levels, to see the potential for a professional sport. If I'm really honest, I think it's going to take someone with deep philanthropic pockets that has a passion for women's sports, whether they had a daughter that grew up playing sports, or they're connected, or it's a woman that has deep pockets, but that's really what it's going to take, where it's somebody's passion and they want to make it happen, and then hopefully we'll all be able to support and push it forward.
Okay, I lied because we're pretty good on time. So follow up to that, talking about the importance of Title IX, fair play, equal opportunities. Can you guys speak to the importance of that, especially when we're talking about, what we just talked about?
I think Title IX is really complex, and it has this association with athletics, but that was not the original intent. And I speak sometimes at high schools, and a parent came up to me and asked, like, do you think Title IX is going to go away? And I was like, wow, if it goes away, I mean, that impacts a lot of things. You're talking about access to biochemistry classes. I mean, really, it was an educational deal. So I think there is a lot of misunderstanding with what Title IX is and why it was started. It is the 45th anniversary, so the NCAA has a report out about Title IX and its impact. As far as working together, I think more needs to be done, because when it came into effect, athletic departments were male and female, and Annie, I'm looking at you, you may know more a little bit about this than I do. But at that time, there were so many female coaches, because female coaches were coaching female sports, and now you see a lot of male coaches coaching female sports. So it's a complex issue. I'm not sure I helped answer that question, but yeah.
You can tell I always have something to say. As far as fair play, we have to keep the field level, and if you're not going to do it, nobody else is going to do it. So that's definitely one of your challenges. Building awareness. So yeah, you're right about it.
Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah. So 1972 is, I believe, is when Title IX came about. I was a freshman in college in 1970, and I knew enough about Title IX once it passed to get a little mouthy. And so a group of us got together, we could not get in to see the vice chancellor, who was the person we were going to talk to if we wanted varsity athletics. Unfortunately for him, someone told me that he always ran at noon. And back then we had a track, so he knew where I was noon one day. And he said, call after 2, and we got in. He still didn't like it. And we kind of kept pushing. One point we got to talk to the chancellor, and we got a lot of
Stuff done.
And then I kept asking people, because we were under physical education, and I asked people who I thought could give me a straight answer, what was happening? Were we going to get anywhere? And she said no. And there was this big table sitting there, and I backed up to it, and I said, fine, I'll have my father sue. Well, it worked in the sense that those of us that were fighting for it were like, did you just do that? And I said, yeah, I did. Well, I made the other side nervous. And if you will, the rest is history. But it took a group of us. So, and unfortunately, when you talk about Title IX, everybody kept thinking about it as women's athletics, and you're taking wrestling away, and you're taking men's gymnastics away. Nobody was taking it away. It was the athletic departments and that university or college's choice of how they were going to budget things. So don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. And I'm glad to see you shake your head about that. It was good. Title IX, it's not just athletics, it's all the way across having equal opportunity. That's the biggest change, and we owe it to each other to ensure everybody else gets that opportunity. Boy, girl, it just doesn't matter. Give it to them. And so this group over here heard me say, I have this issue when they talk about hockey in college, say hockey, and then they talk about the women's team and say it's women's hockey. It's men's hockey and the women's hockey. We're just saying.
I would just agree that sometimes the perception is out there that the women's sports are taking from the men's sports, and so it's really fine-tuning that communication and making sure that it's equal access for all. And it's something we constantly battle against when we're looking at our NCAA programs and what that means. So just making sure that we fine-tune that communication.
Yeah, I think the original question asked about the impact. It's been everything for my personal career. I wouldn't have played soccer in college because there wouldn't have been a college program. I wouldn't have had a female athletic director who was, when I spoke to her for the first time, realized, oh, well, maybe I could do something like that one day. And a lot of times, especially for an immature 18-year-old who's in college, who thinks the world revolves around a soccer ball, you need to see people who look like you in positions that you could eventually become. It has everything to do with the opportunities that my 3 daughters have now to participate. I can't speak enough about that. And I'm going to add to your men's hockey, women's hockey, the lady, right? Like it's the bears and the lady bears. Like there's such thing as female bears, people. But that's a side note. I just think you and I, we gotta go.
Yeah. Like the lady bumps up and see you and they, oh, trip.
Anyway, that's my rant.
Okay, now we can open up any questions from the audience.
Hi, I'm Kiana. I want to thank you guys for coming, first of all. So, Celia, you talked about, you talked about Time's Up and Me Too movements, and obviously we're kind of at a pivotal point in women's history right now, and we'll kind of see where that goes. And Chris, you talked a lot about how happy you are to see men here and the importance of having men working with women and cheering on women. What is something that you guys would like to see, whether that be in collegiate sports or professional men's sports, to kind of help with that movement and help women in sports in general?
I'll take a stab at that. So I think a really big movement, especially for like the NFL, was getting the female referee, full-time referee. You don't even see women, I guess, in minor league baseball, and so I think that would be a big push for baseball. You know, just getting a full-time umpire. And so I think that there's opportunities. It's just, like I said earlier, it's a matter of who wants to take those opportunities and who wants to push, the envelope to get there.
Yeah, no, that was good. It's hard to follow. I think you talk about men in the room and men supporting us. I'm fortunate because I work for a man who is my mentor and acts as a mentor and supports me professionally. So I agree that that's very, very important. It'll be interesting to see how the Me Too movement and the times that movement moves on. It seems very centered on, there's a lot of actors that are supporting it. So it'll be interesting to see how athletics participates in that conversation. But I'm not exactly sure how that direction's going to go.
I would say we all have a responsibility that if we see a man or a woman say something inappropriate or do something inappropriate, you say something about it. And I will tell you, I had something happen to me. It wasn't the worst thing in the world, but it happened to me. And guess what I did? I went into the office the next day and I said, Robbie, what did I do? What did I do that he thought he could do that to me? I thought I was wrong. So you have to step up. You have to. That's the best thing about Me Too and Time's Up. Because now they're going to listen a whole lot better. It's not our fault. Or for that matter, it's not the man's fault.
Next question?
All right, Clinton.
My name is Clinton. Thank you as well for being here. At one point, I think it was Anna that said a lot of men now are coaching women's sport, and that was not a popular trend. I wanted to ask, do you think that's part of a problem, or is that part of a solution with women's sport? And do you think that having men that can empower women in sport, specifically the athletes, is a benefit?
Good question.
That's a good question. What we're seeing is that the transition was due to the fact that it was more popular, right? So like you see the man who's coaching at UConn, women's basketball, I forget his name. But,
Really?
so now there's fame and there's money involved. So it's attractive for both men and women. So I think that's why you've seen that shift from women coaching women's sports to now men coaching women's sports, because it's popular now and they can support a family on that amount of money. What we're seeing, unfortunately, with student athletes is that female student athletes are used to having men coaches there coaching their teams. So like their dads coach their softball team when they're growing up. So when institutions are going through hiring processes, they're seeing that their student athletes want men coaches because that's what they're used to. So I can appreciate where you're coming from. I think like having the opportunity to work with men and work with women, but at the same time, now there's a smaller opportunity for women to be coaches because there's this tendency to bring men for those positions. So I still think it's a problem, but that's me personally.
I think the key is also getting women to coach the men's teams too.
Becky,
It'd all be fine. Oh, my coach's voice. It'd all be okay if it wasn't that there's only a certain number, right? And I know you didn't mean to say it that way, Kirsten. I know that like there's fewer opportunities, but that's how it's seen.
Yeah.
And you talk about a female referee and coaches and assistant coaches. That I hope that it's a step, right? So it can be part of the solution, and at times it can be part of a problem. So the answer is yes and yes, but not forever, right? As we progress, so that we'll all be able to accept the fact that any gender can coach any gender.
Thank you all for being here. Cheryl Morrison, I work with the Denver Broncos with Pat, Guest Relations, and piggybacking on what you guys were saying about women coaches. We have seen a lot of female coaches and referees coming into the NFL and NBA as assistant coaches, as referees. We are currently getting ready to build our own women's coach/referee locker room at the stadium, which is, I think, we were discussing, it's huge because that's a step forward. Do you think, how do we support those women in those positions? How to get the respect from such a male-dominated industry? I mean, you have all these male athletes. Do they respect the women? Are they going to respect the women? How do we, I don't know, how do we encourage them, encourage the men to look to the females as leaders as well?
So Amy, you said you can lead from wherever you are, you can lead up from the bottom, and that's important. However, those male athletes and staff will follow the lead from the top. I work mainly with athletic departments, and if coach says you need to show up, you show up. If coach says this is important, if coach puts his trust in these people, then you put your trust in these people. And the same goes with the hierarchy within the organization as well. It doesn't stop at the coach level. But I think that's key. I also think that there needs to be as much support as you can grant to the people in those positions. Because they are going to be carrying an extra load than those who, everyone else is the same. So I feel like that support, but also coming from the top, making it very clear that we support these people, and here's why.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. It's also, if you find one or two of those athletes that are very supportive of what's going on, you just start there. When I did the Old Timers Baseball Series, it was all those guys, and we had a good time. But they also knew if I said, this is where you need to be, and when, they knew it. And they'll respect you, and you've got to respect yourself, too. Do not underestimate yourself.
I feel like all of you guys have talked about when we're interviewing and when we're displaying ourselves, we need to be really confident. But do we talk about the fact that we're living in an industry that's so male dominant in our interviews? Do we talk about the elephant in the room, or do we just own our skills?
That's a good question. Very,
I say no. I don't think you need to. I think you're enough with your skill set and what you bring. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, and you get to choose what you say. So they can't ask specific questions, but when I got this job, I was young, I was single, I wanted to travel. So I said those things, like you're gonna have to go to championships. Yes, send me, I wanna go, I wanna take advantage of that opportunity. So you get to choose what you share with them.
You're an equal, so what if you're a woman? Don't give yourself a label. The only label you want to give is, I'm the person for the job.
That's right.
I agree. I think as long as you're in there confident and showing that you want to work hard, you absolutely do not have to give yourself a label.
I agree that they can't. Probably won't be asking you what your gender is either, but they can't ask certain questions as well legally. But to be prepared with how you would respond to that question, because even if it's not in an interview setting, it happens in other ways. Different roles that I've had, and being the only female traveling with the groups in certain areas sometimes, just being able to prepare yourself to respond in a way that you feel is comfortable in your words with because it would start with my mom, like, what, are you comfortable with all those guys around? That's not what she sounds like. People will ask me, and it won't always be in an interview setting, but also in those informal, or even these types of semi-formal networking type conversations.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Kayla. Thank you for coming. guess what I want to ask is, being male dominant and just growing up through that and just wanting to own like being a female and trying to gain respect from people. I guess like you can be confident, but when you kind of go through a male dominant place, how do you become like walk with that swag or like or like walk in and like demand respect? Like how do you grow that in yourself? Like obviously you're confident with yourself, but how do you show it off? Like make sure that they know that you are as well.
You need to watch a TED Talk with Amy Cuddy, Presence. That's just side note. Yeah, I guess you.
Yeah.
But that's a side note. It's about presence and body language. But I think a lot of it is finding that confidence. And I'll go on a small tangent because I do talk for too long. Is to figure out what you know you're really good at, and it could be just one thing. Sort of the term we use when we talk about it is an island of competence. What is that one slot? So you might feel like you're drowning all day long in your job or in this class, but what's that one thing you know you're good at? And own it, and start with that. And then maybe you can build another island that you can feel like you feel comfortable here too, and you start to connect them. And the islands grow, and you don't feel like you're drowning all day long because you start with one little thing at a time, that one tiny island at a time that you can start to own and make sure they know. So they might know nothing about you, but I'm really good at just this one thing, and have it grow from there.
I definitely think your work ethic too. I know that's how I essentially got there, was I know that I'm working hard. I know I'm doing this job to the best of my ability. I know none of the guys around me can do it as good as me because like she said, I'm good at this one thing and I know this. So I think as long as you work hard, you know that you're doing your best. You know, you're going out asking questions, doing whatever you need to do will help you build your confidence.
So when I first got to the RMAC, in my evaluations, my boss brought up that it was anonymous, so I don't know who it was, but someone called me abrasive. So, you know, I do compliance, so I can be very direct in what I tell people because I don't want things to be left up to interpretation. But when I asked him, like, if I were a male, would they have called a male abrasive? And he looked at me, he thought about it, he's like, I don't think so. And so I was like, okay, well, and he's like, nope, we're not talking about it. It's, you know, you're not abrasive. So we kind of moved on.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it helps change your perspective.
That's right.
But also, there could be something to that. So for me, it's developing relationships. I can be confident and good at what I do, but at the end of the day, I also have to be able to communicate that so that everybody gets it, and I have to communicate differently to different people. So sometimes you have to own what you're doing, but also understand who you're talking to.
Yeah, I often use the phrase fake it till you feel it, and I often will tell myself as I walk into a room, I'm confident and I can sit in this room with 12 men and carry on conversation and be part of that, and so I think that that's important. I think it's also really important to pick your island of competency and bring that voice to the table, and that's key. I've also been called very direct and to the point, and I think that as women, sometimes that's seen as not a strength. I look at it as a strength. I can get where I need to go pretty quickly. But I agree with you. It's just how do you build those relationships around that and your strengths.
Hi, my name's Alyssa Svolberg. All of you guys have touched on being confident. Do you think that's why you all have been successful, or do you think like networking or like a certain opportunity that you took played a role within that?
So mine definitely was networking. I actually got my internship off of Twitter, of all places. But I took a chance. Originally had one internship lined up. It didn't work out. This internship was unpaid. The first one was paid. It was paid very well. but I took the chance. I moved to the Springs. You know, I took a chance on myself essentially. And so I definitely think networking is huge. So seeing all you guys here is awesome. I am looking for an intern, so yeah. So, you know, sometimes you run into situations, you know, like they said. She said that she ran into somebody she met, you know, as a college athlete. I run into people, you know, through MLB, and you know, you end up going to a party and you're like, oh hey, I met you so and so, or I met you here or there, and you know, it's good connections. You never know where your career is going to take you. And so just, my business card stack on my desk is deep. Like I can't even fit any more cards into it. But I never know when I'm going to have to, you know, call on somebody for that. So definitely network. I think that will be most beneficial to everybody.
So Alyssa is a former intern from Forward Progress. Amazing. If you're looking to hire, she's the one. And I'm not, she only paid me $10 to say. But I mean that. Like she was a fantastic intern, and we speak her praises all the time. And just today, she's telling me about where she might want to go, and after an internship and graduation, and those connections. So the good work that you did for us, while we didn't pay you, hopefully will lead to those relationships. Because if it wasn't good work, then it's hard to stick your neck out and your whole what's the word?
Reputation.
Thank you. Your whole reputation on the line for someone that you weren't that impressed with. And this is even being recorded. So. So the question was not about that, but I was really happy to ask a question. I had the right way. It was about confidence, and it's both, right? There's some days where I'm overconfident and I'm ready to rule the world and no one can get in my way, and then there's days where I don't stop second guessing myself the whole time. And those are the days when it's really important to have other people, colleagues around to show you the mirror, like, okay, no more pity party, or like, don't think that way, whatever it might be. Because I think that's natural, that we all kind of ebb and flow. But the more things you can do to give you that confidence, you have to keep saying yes. So if you're not sure yes or no, if you say yes to this opportunity, then that's going to grant you more confidence as well.
I'm going to sing Alyssa's praises also. And we are looking for interns. But was it a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, we met, I took her to lunch, and one of my great weaknesses is social media. And I'm trying to learn, but already she's given me the confidence to try some stuff. Who knows where we're going to get our confidence from? She gave it to me, we give it to each other, just go for it. And I will say, networking wasn't something that we really had back in the day, and I just can't think of anything more important than it is now. And one more thing my sister said to say it, with Facebook and things like that, clean it up. They will look at it, okay? You may be just fabulous, and they're going to look at it and go, nope.
I think social media is dangerous too, because you're comparing your bad day to their good day. So if you're having a bad day, maybe go on there for an inspirational quote, but don't start comparing yourself to other people. We do have 3 interns as well, as long as we're doing an intern shout out. So those go August to May. You can check our website, March, April.
I think confidence is important, but all of us would tell you, I'm sure, hard work and some sacrifices along the way. And if we weren't saying that, we probably wouldn't be honest. I also think confidence is important, but not overconfidence, so that you're always reaching for how can I be better, how can I take that next step, how can I improve. So being confident in your abilities, but not resting on that confidence and always pushing forward.
Okay, I think we have time for 1 or 2 more.
So my name is Celeste. Thank you guys for being here. So I know for me, being a female and wanting to go into this industry, I know I have to work, a little bit more harder to gain that respect. But, being a minority, you have parents that, speak nothing but Spanish at times, and you're kind of just between two different cultures. So for those of you guys who have worked with minorities who are women, kind of what's the advice or what kind of steps did you see them take to gain that respect and kind of keep both of their, cultures in one, I guess?
I can start. You and I need to talk, first of all, so we'll go out for coffee. And absolutely. And it's all cultures, different parts of the country. I just feel like you and I might have a lot of things that we've both experienced at some point. And I think it's being able to find what can be a challenge or a barrier or whatever negative thing it is, how can you turn it into a strength? So eventually, the easiest thing to say is, oh, well, you speak more than one language. What a great asset that you have. You know what different cultures are like. You'd be able to bring that to the table. And there are a lot of positions that want that as their top one or two things for a candidate. But it is a balance. And to know that, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but everyone has the challenges that they need to get through, whatever it might be, because yours are more specific to culture. I think a lot of that is from our end as administrators or bosses or whatever term you want to use, is to be open to whatever that culture is. So my coach was Brian McManus from Scotland, and I didn't understand a word he said. And he promised he was speaking English, but I never went first in a drill because I didn't know what he was saying. I would have like, freshman, you go, and then I'll do what you're doing, because I couldn't. So literally worlds apart from each other, or at least oceans apart. Yet he understood my need, because I need to go back to see my family, because that's what was the norm of like going back and seeing Lolita and all these kinds of things that I needed to do. And because he was open to it, and it was on my day off, but there was still like, yeah, good, great, go see your family, that'd be wonderful. That made all the difference in me being able to have a successful collegiate career with that coach. And he still doesn't speak a word of Spanish, so he didn't have to understand what I went through, just understand that I had these needs. And I think that's a general term that we can all understand. Celeste, right?
Yeah. I think it helps if you've created a culture where you can have a conversation. And the conversations aren't going to be easy, and you're going to kind of have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. But for a white female, I don't understand the experience of a woman of color. So understanding that there's a perspective that I need to know more about, and being open to have that conversation, I think is super important.
I would just say look for those organizational opportunities where diversity is valued and find your in that way. I think that there are a lot of organizations, I know in the Olympic movement right now, we are always talking about diversity and how do we bring everyone to the table. So I think when you look for those organizations that are pushing that message forward, it's easier to find those role models and those positions and places where you can get started and move in.
Do we have one more? Anyone?
I'm Taryn. I'm actually an athletic training major right now, looking into like sports management. And I know primarily with athletic training there is an old school thought of from higher up, we kind of touched on that, where they don't think that is a woman's job. And like they said that kind of, with football programs and kind of like a little bit of the professional side, from my side of things, it's so hard to like break into that and like get those opportunities and just off like our programs, like we are primarily female. Like every class is over 50% female, so there's so many of us. And it's just like there is still that mold though. So how do you think that, like, what's the best way we could try to break that? Just wait for those guys to kind of like make their way out. What's your opinion on that stuff?
Prove yourself. If you know, if there was a trainer, female trainer at DU named Connie Larson, who was the head trainer, and we had a young man playing hockey who was injured seriously enough that they took him off in an ambulance. The doctor wanted his helmet to be taken off, and Connie said no. Once they got to the emergency room, the doctors there said, "Thank God you didn't take the helmet off." So it goes back to, once again, they see how you do it, they'll get you in there.
There was one athletic trainer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, female. I don't know if you saw her.
There's like few and far between,
Yeah.
which is like so like hopeful.
Yeah, it'd be neat to tap into her and see how she got there and what went through.
Well, I definitely think in baseball, it's just starting at minor leagues. I know that one of my bosses, he started in minor leagues. Obviously, he didn't want to work there forever, but that's how he got started. And so, you know, kind of like they say, start at the bottom, work your way up. As long as you're a hard worker, as long as you know what you're doing, you're going to earn that respect and you're going to be able to make your way up.
Kirsten, you said something about male coaches coming into female sports. Well, guess what? It's time for females to get into training. And you said something about the kids have come up like through high school with male coaches. Well, I can tell you at places like the University of Denver, there's a lot of female trainers. So I would say that the athletes are going to start getting used to female trainers. So go for it.
One more?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm from UCCS. I go to UCCS. I was just wondering, as we're seeing this development in women in sport today and the U.S., how can we go about this around the world and develop it internationally?
I would just say one of the great things about the Olympic movement is I get the opportunity to interact with a lot of other women from other countries. And I think while we still have some room to grow in the United States and some goals that we want to reach, that a lot of other countries are further behind and I think are just now starting to really look at getting women involved. And I think you're seeing that across all of the Olympic sports organizations in really putting more importance on women being involved. So it's kind of exciting to see it grow across the world and to be able to network with those people as well and encourage.
And that can be tough, because country to country, we're not necessarily the best in that. You look at some countries and they have depending on the different sport where they're at, a lot of times the women are in higher positions of power than just the United States. I still think overall we're doing pretty good compared to the rest of the world, but to also to keep in mind that we may not be the best in that. And this is, so very important question. I played for a short time on the Mexican national soccer team when, for like 4 months, and I had gone from an institution where my athletic director was female, as I said, and we had the same locker rooms, and it was Title IX compliant, and it was great, and our homecoming, we didn't have a football team, so sometimes in men's soccer, sometimes women's, sometimes, whatever that fall sport, it would rotate. And it was rainbows and unicorns, right? It was great. And then at the end of my senior year, I'm playing on a team that, well, let's just say we weren't treated the same way as the men's national team was treated. And we lived in Tijuana, and got 2 meals a day. And it was just completely different than in 1998 when the men were living in a castle in France playing for the Men's World Cup. It was a little slightly, we didn't have uniforms or laundry, didn't sink. It was completely different. But that really inspired me. Because I felt like I kind of like a time warp had gone back in time. Like, what is this? But me and the other people who had similar situations, because they played sports in the United States and colleges, would be able to lift the level of expectation. And so while others grew up where they didn't feel confident to ask or push, those of us that did have that confidence could come together. And to also do it together as a team. So wherever you are, if you're the only one who's going to speak up, then you still have to do it. And good for you and good luck to you. But the more voices and the more people that you have, I mean, even Andy was saying it wasn't just her going to the chancellor's office, it was her group, her team. So where you are in different parts of the country, that you can help meet them where they're at and at least try to get the smaller things to start to rise.
All right, I think that wraps up questions. Thank you all, and thank you all for providing such great questions. I don't know.
Yeah, I just want to give them a round of applause.